Duane.
Hello and welcome to our first production of SUAANGAN. My name is Stan RUBEN. 1992 should be an exciting year. We all hope so anyways. There are people out there in need of jobs and people starting up new businesses. We hope each and everyone succeeds in doing so. Tonight we put forth questions to 5 Inuvik residents to find out what their departments and organizations will be doing for the year 1992. First of all, Roger Connelly is the Regional Director for the Inuvik region. He explains what the government plans for 1992 in respect to policy changes.
I think, as most people have heard in the last month, six weeks, coming from the government leader and cabinet of the government Northwest Territories, one, if not the biggest project and the biggest effort of the territorial government in the next, not just 1 year, but 3 or 4 years, will be the process of community transfers. That's of how do we move the resources and responsibilities for the delivery and the operation of all the programs that we currently do at the community level. How do we move it from our hands into the hands of the community and at the people at the community level? They are the people themselves, they live with the problems, they best know how to solve them. So hey, how do we get our resources that we're currently using now, the money, the people, the facilities and so on, how do we transfer those into their hands so they can solve the problems by themselves, with our help, of course. That's the biggest challenge, I would say, definitely. It's going to be a major, probably the major effort of all government departments as a block, not just anyone on its own, but all of them. And I say this because it's community transfers, it'll affect every single community in the Northwest Territories. Some of the smaller issues, of course, here, relative to this part of the world, oil and gas is always that big number that goes up and down. Territorial government, through the Northern Accord, promotion of that, they trying to work with the Aboriginal organizations and the federal government to get more and more land open up for oil and gas work up here. Some of that's working, as we've seen recently with the recent Shell, the announcements for the Shell work. Within the constitutional area, there's all the work going on across Canada in the field of Aboriginal self-government, and we're doing work in that field in the Northwest Territories that overlaps and ties into this community transfer process, and that's a complex little number, and I'm not too sure if too many people know exactly where it's going to end up at the present time, but we'll obviously be right in the thick of it up here and extremely sensitive to it. We've got the Gwich'in claim just on our, well, right on our doorstep, right part of us here. And there's a component of that on self-government too. So that's right in the middle of this process somewhere. Nunavut's on the side. That's maybe a year or two down the road in real terms, but something that will involve our thinking now. Literacy is a big issue. I think it's recognized that one of the things that hold back Northerners, Native people in the Northwest Territories is the lack of higher education and the need for, right from the bottom end grades right up through college and university. That's a major thrust. One other big one will be how to get the biggest bang for the buck spent. The government here is the biggest show in town at the present time. We have major budgets in the capital field for buildings, for roads, and so on and so forth. How the challenge is here, how do we get most of that money to stay in town? Rather than having southern companies or the money bleeding south so fast and not much staying here to turn over 2 or 3 times and benefit us. So the major challenge, what do we have to do with projects to make the money stay here? That's one of the bigger challenges too. Many challenges for the year ahead.
Education plays a major role in the lives of our young children. These days it is very important to have an education. For young children, learning about education and what it means to them is a responsibility of both parent and teacher. Pauline Gordon is the Vice Principal at Sir Alexander Mackenzie School in Inuvik. I asked her about main concerns in schooling and educating our younger children.
I think the trend is to go with the current philosophy of the department, which is the holistic approach to education and the culture-based schools. And of course that has implications for development of programs at the local level, and that of course will in turn mean more control by the parents and a greater interest in what their children are doing within the school system, I hope, because it'll request that the parents be involved with the school system, because if it's going to be culture-based, no one else can teach the culture to our children any better than our parents can. And I think student-centered learning, which has implications again for starting where the children are at, will ensure that, will try and ensure that the parents and the community is involved in the education system, so that there's a tie between the school and the education system.
The Joint Secretariat is an organization established in October of 1986, pursuant to the Inuvialuit Final Agreement. This organization does administration and supplies technical support for wildlife management committees. Norm Snow is the executive director for the Joint Secretariat.
Yes, it's going to be a really major effort on wildlife studies. The federal government has allowed us to use money which had lapsed in the earlier part of the implementation period. And so a very large study program has been planned for the next 2 years. And it's going to be all of the main species, polar bear in the Beaufort Sea and Viscount Melville Sound, grizzly bear in the Richardson and Anderson-Horton Pawatuck area, Perry caribou on Banks in Victoria, muskox on Banks and Victoria, blue-nosed caribou, habitat studies on the North Slope, and a fair amount of effort on some species of waterfowl, brent, eidas, and white fronts. That's over and above the usual, beluga harvest monitoring and the Delta whitefish.
One department that allows people the opportunity to pursue a possible career in business or take advantage of training opportunities is the Department of Economic Development and Tourism in Inuvik. Doug Doane is the regional superintendent.
Well, our mandate can probably be best summed up by saying that we're trying to help with job creation through development of small business. Our objectives, we recently had a new strategy come out last year, in fact, and there were 3 principal objectives outlined in that strategy. The first was to reduce the disparity between income levels and jobs between the various communities in the north. The second objective is to promote growth and diversification of our economic base. And the third objective was to try to ensure that more northerners participate in the benefits of economic development. Those 3 objectives are to be fulfilled through the strategy and the programs that come from the strategy. And there's 4 key elements, if you like, that are interwoven into all of our new programs. The first is targeting our communities, targeting our assistance, and by that we mean we have actually classified our communities into 3 levels of community. The first being the larger centers, which are ostensibly market-driven in nature. They're the larger regional centers in Yellowknife. The second level of community is the larger communities like Fort McPherson and Aklavik and Norman Wells, where they're very close to achieving a market-driven status. They have a lot of infrastructure, but they aren't market-driven at this point in time. And then the third level of communities are the smaller outlying communities, which are a long ways away from being market-driven, but where there are often opportunities to develop arts and crafts and renewable resource type projects. So by devising this three level system, what the department is trying to do is prioritize our activity, particularly in the level 2 and 3 communities. The second element that's important and interwoven into our programs is called Building on Strength. And basically all that means is that we will give priority to those kinds of projects that take advantage of strategic or natural strengths. And good examples of those are arts and crafts and renewable resource type projects. The third element is called increasing self-sufficiency. And by that, what we are trying to do is cut down the North's reliance upon Southern suppliers of goods and services. So any business that is actually going to displace service or goods that are presently coming from the South is likely to receive priority, again, a much higher priority. And the fourth element is called improved accountability. And by that, really what we mean is improved service to the public, a faster turnaround in terms of working with businesses on their applications, and in fact, streamlined applications. One of the things that we've done is we've come out with one application which can be used for any of our programs. So I guess just in summary, as far as the Inuvik region's concerned, our sort of goals for the next year or objectives are to stimulate increased activity, particularly in our level 2 and 3 communities, and particularly in arts and crafts, renewable resources, tourism, and small business.
Hunters and trappers in and around the Inuvik area are always interested in the rise and fall of fur prices. Not only is price important, but the upkeep of their trap line. The methods of trapping are changing, and trappers have to adapt to a new system. Renewable Resources Officer Duane Smith.
As of October 1992, all lake-hold traps will have to be switched over to conibear except for the quick kill underwater set traps for muskrats and beaver.
How do they go about doing that? With the conibears, do they exchange them or buy their own?
At present, for about 5 years now, our department has been informing trappers of this. We are exchanging trap or trap basis. For a lake hole, we'll give them a conibear.
How can parents and teachers be more involved in educating our young children?
Parents, I think, should take a daily interest in what the students are doing by asking questions about what's happening within the school system, and also by doing simple things like reading with the children on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be the child reading to them. They can read to the child, and it has as much an impact as the child reading back to them. Although they should try and have both, like exercise in reading to the parent and having the parent read to the child as well.
The staff will be involved in monitoring the polar bear agreements, both the international one with the Alaskans and the one that was recently signed with people in the Kuwaitan as well, just to monitor the performance of that. The harvest study will be reviewed after 5 years of operation next year. There may be some changes in the way that it's going to be conducted in the future. It may be more specific on certain species, but we'll await the outcome of the evaluation, the review of that. With respect to jobs, there are a couple of vacancies that will be coming up within the Secretariat itself. There's a fairly slow turnover in field workers for the harvest study, but it's a pretty small office, but that's about what we have coming up.
Why is it so important for our young children to keep going to school, not being absent for such and such a time?
I think in any situation, absence always takes away from the program, because you don't have the continuity that's required for you to go from A to B as per se. So for children to go to school continually is really important, so you don't miss some sections of the curriculum.
Small business, how can they take advantage of opportunities that arise?
People have to be, going into business is not easy, and people have to be somewhat committed. They have to show some initiative, but they don't have to have a degree from Harvard Business School. If somebody sees an opportunity, or what they perceive could be a good opportunity, all they really have to do is perhaps make an appointment or go and see their economic development officer, or in some of the communities now we have CEDO representatives who can also talk about their idea and sort of get them started on the process of investigating how they might be able to start a business around that idea.
What do the children look forward to when they go to school, or certain events in the year that they look forward to?
I think the anticipation is there early in the year for the Christmas concert, and then for the spring concert as well, and other things such as the science outings where they go to different camps to spend times out on the land for a few days. We had for a number of years the science camp out at Wrangling, and the kids really look forward to going there.
What about fur prices this year? Fur prices and auctions that are coming up. Do you have any information to give to hunters and trappers about prices?
Our auction, we have an auction coming up at Western Canada Raw Fur in Vancouver on January 22nd. It's 9 days from now. And the prices are, this is the first sale of the year, the first big sale for us. So what we've heard is the prices are going to be steady, and within some fur species, it should be a slight increase.
Let's talk about finances. How can people get or grant,
Sure.
or how can they get loans granted to them, or?
Okay, there's actually 5 sort of levels of service, if you like, to individual businesses, 5 types of service, you might say. And I'll go over them just really briefly, like an overview. The first is a business loan program that's available to those who don't have access to a bank, or to those that get turned down by the bank. The loan program basically is quite streamlined. It's under our new Business Credit Corporation. It's a Crown Corporation at arm's length from the department, and it makes loans up to $1 million. So that's sort of the first level, if you like, of service. The second type of service is our Business Development Fund. And the Business Development Fund essentially provides contributions to business that provide for a variety of purposes designed actually to cover a business right through its lifespan. So under the Business Development Fund, people can access government assistance to help cover the costs of a feasibility study when they're thinking about the business, to actually help cover the capital costs when they actually start up the business. And there are also elements in the Business Development Fund that provide for skill development and management training, market and product development, and there's even one element that provides for business relief, which is when a business gets into a temporary problem and needs some financial assistance. And I should mention that often the loan program and the contribution program will both be used simultaneously to address a need for a business. And this is where, when I mentioned the single application form earlier, that's one of the areas we've tried to streamline. The third type of service is an employment creation type program, and that's known as the NWT Development Corporation. The NWT Development Corporation has 2 basic functions. The first is to undertake projects which may not be profitable in the foreseeable future, but may have considerable employment implications. And a good example in this region is the Fort McPherson Canvas Shop, which has been taken over by the Development Corporation now. The Canvas Shop actually doesn't make money, but its losses are quite minimal relative to the 15 people that it employs there. So that the Development Corporation will undertake those kinds of initiatives where there's a lot of employment generated, and it's in a smaller community. The other thing the Development Corporation can do is it can be a joint venture partner for a private business. So if a private business were in a situation where it needed a considerable considerable amount of equity capital, they could actually make a submission to the NWT Development Corporation, and the Development Corporation might become a shareholder in their company for a period of time, it being understood that at some future date the private ownership would buy out the Development Corporation. The fourth sort of level of assistance is the advisory role, and that is carried out in a number of ways. In this region we have 7 economic development officers that are out in the communities providing advice and guidance and trying to help people. And in addition to that, we have 5 sector specialists who are located in our regional office here in Inuvik. Where we are asked to provide guidance or advice that's sort of outside of our realm of expertise, we also have access to a program called CESO, which is Canadian Executive Service Organization. And CESO, basically it's a roster of semi-retired businessmen in the South from various different types of business and industry. And these individuals make themselves available for short-term assignments to help our business people solve problems or start up a business or look into feasibility of a business. And the cost of that program is borne by the department. So, for example, an individual with a business in Tuktoyaktuk that was experiencing some problems, if it was something that we didn't really have expertise in, we could arrange to bring one of these fellows up from the South, probably for 2 or 3 weeks, to try and help solve that problem. The last, if you like, last type of assistance that's available is called the Venture Capital Fund. And that's basically an incentive contribution, if you like, which is available to an investor, whether it's in the South or in the North, who invests in a community-owned business and provides, typically it's an investment combined with some management talent. And under those circumstances, in order to attract people to invest in community businesses rather than businesses in the South or businesses in Yellowknife, our department will provide basically a contribution back to the investor, so that they're basically being subsidized to invest. If they invest $100,000, potentially they could get $30,000 back.
Anything else to add or information to pass on to hunters and trappers or the people in the community?
Just that we're available 8:30 to 5 every day. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to call.
What about bilingualism in school? Is that a big issue?
I think it's an issue in that we are not and have not been successful in ensuring that bilingualism occurs, whether it be French and English or English in an Aboriginal language. The classroom teachings and the way things go in the home aren't tying in, so that there isn't that reinforcement when they go home. So we haven't revived the language like we thought we would through the education system. So I think other areas that have to be pursued are the literacy programs for adults and that type of thing, so that there can be reinforcement within the home for the languages.
How do people find out about such projects or training opportunities?
The training that's actually administered, if you like, by our department is very specialized, very specific training for business, and it's the training that isn't available through other departments. Examples of this might be board of director training or guide training, hospitality training relating to the tourism industry. The new economic development agreement contains training resources, if you like, in a number of places in an attempt to address those specialized needs. Now, I should probably add, though, that our economic development officers are usually well acquainted with programs that might be offered through advanced education or Arctic College. And they can always help people at the community level by tracking down programs that are offered by other departments and agencies for for individuals.
But if there's anything specific to do with wildlife management or fisheries concerns or employment opportunities and so on, it's up to them. If they want to go through the HTC, there are HTC members on the Game Council, and they meet on average 6 times a year, and Secretariat provides administrative service to them, to the Game Council. So they can either go through the HTC, or if they're in town, they can just come into our office.
Anything you'd like to add on behalf of the SUAANGAN staff?
Just that there are a lot of interesting things happening within our school system that sometimes are not highlighted as much as the negative things, and that are kind of peripheral issues to the school system. We have everything from a wide variety of extracurricular activities for the students to visitors from South Africa who are here with us until the end of the month. And on a weekly basis, we have students from the Native Women's Association who go into our classroom, assist with the teachers. And we also have 3 teacher interns from the Fort Smith program who are presently at our school. And we have, on a monthly basis, elders visits to our school for a 1-week period. We have the breakfast club which assists needy children in giving them hot breakfasts throughout the colder months, and to computer club and also to arts and crafts and sports types activities. So our year is really quite exciting most of the time, and sometimes people don't hear about those things.
People don't really appreciate, but 52% of all the jobs in the North are created by small business. And even in a time when we have financial restraint and the South is somewhat recessionary, even in a time like that, there are lots of opportunities for business creation here in the North. Some of those opportunities are part-time or seasonal in nature. They're not full-time situations. But there are plenty of opportunities, there's no question about it. A good example of that is the Dempster Highway. Each year, despite the recession in the South, each year we see increased numbers of visitors. Most of these visitors, they fill out surveys and whatnot when they leave, and many of them indicate a need for a greater variety of lower priced crafts. They also are looking for diversity and more tourism type products like boat trips and day tours, that sort of thing. So there are plenty of opportunities in the tourism area, but again, they are seasonal in nature.